Yes, sir. Now today, we gonna slay the final boss of Black History Month. The final boss of the Black controlled opposition. We gonna take his head off. We gonna do a fatality move. And it's gonna be a flawless victory. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The Martin Luther King breakdown. As you can see how I put Martin Luther in quotations. Let's get on with the breakdown. Now, we know that Martin Luther King was not born with that name. Martin Luther King was actually born as Michael King Jr. Now, it's a whole reason, a whole strategic reason behind that. Not just the fact that Martin equals 42, just like the N-word. We passed that. We're not even going to touch on the number 42 in this video. We've already touched on it enough. It's already understood. We got a lot of other things to talk about around Martin Luther King. Now, shortly, let's talk about his father for a second. Now, shortly after marrying Alberta, King Sr., right, Martin Luther King Sr. became an assistant pastor of the Ebenezer Church. Senior Pastor Williams died in the spring of 1931, and that fall, King Sr. took the role where he would in time raise the attendance from 600 to several thousand. In 1934, when Martin Luther King was just 5 years old, the church sent his father on a multinational trip, including to Berlin, for the meeting of the Congress of the Baptist World Alliance. He also visited sites in Germany associated with the Reformation leader Martin Luther. Now, the original Martin Luther is from the 1500s. So now if you understand this trip that he took to Germany, this is where Martin Luther King's father became familiar with the original figure of Martin Luther. He became inspired by that Martin Luther. And that's what caused him, when he came back home from that trip in August 1934, that same year, King Sr. changed his name to Martin Luther King and his 5-year-old son's name to Martin Luther King Jr. So his father knew what he was doing. So now, since we know that he was inspired by this individual, let's take a dive on the original. Now, first, hold on. I'm jumping the gun. First, we have to acknowledge that Martin Luther King's father was a member of the Omega Psi Phi. So this goes to show you that this was a strategic move by the fraternity, by the brotherhood. The brotherhood was leading him. Now, not only was he an Omega Psi Phi member, Reverend Jesse Jackson was also an Omega Psi Phi member. Now, what's interesting about Jesse Jackson is the fact that he was one of the last people that was with his son Martin Luther King the day that he quote unquote got killed, right? So the fraternity, the brotherhood was all around this move. This was a strategic move. Now, let's dive in on the original German scholar by the name of Martin Luther. Now, it's said that on Halloween, right, October 31st, I don't know if at this time, if 1517, I'm not sure if October 31st was recognized as Halloween, but is said to have nailed his argument on that day against the Catholic Church's sale of better treatment after death. Now let's dive in on that. Let's break that down real quick. Let's break that down, because it was a lot of principles that the original Martin Luther stood on. Now, Luther didn't like the fact, just to expound on that last thing, just to make it make sense. He did not like the fact that people could buy indulgences or reduce punishment after death. An indulgence is a remission before God of the temporal punishment due to sins whose guilt has already been forgiven. So basically, the Catholic Church was teaching their people that you could buy forgiveness for your sins. You could buy it rather than repenting and actually feeling remorse over your sins. And these are the things that he was against. So it's interesting how Martin Luther was brought up based on the same character principles. Now let's move on. Luther also believed that Christians should hold to the Bible alone. He said Luther was disapproved of any additional traditions. He taught that the Bible alone was the source of revelation. He said neither the church nor the Pope can establish articles of faith. These must come from Scripture. So he knew that the church was not the answer. He knew that the answer would not come from a pastor. He knew the answer would not come from a pope. Because look at what the things that the Pope is doing today. They playing around with these kids. They got this demonic stuff going on. Everything that's going on in the Gematria, the Jewish mysticism, is coming from the Catholic Church. This is where the Pope is operating through, Pope Francis, and we know how many connections, how much blood is on his hands, how he's connected to the royal family, and we know that they ain't no good. And these were the things that the original Martin Luther was against. So it's blasphemy that this Martin Luther King would take on this name and play the role that he played, because he played directly with the Pope. He played directly with the church. His father was a pastor. He was a pastor. So it was direct blasphemy from the original Martin Luther. Now that you understand the principles that he stood on. So now, just to show you how far back Gematria goes, the original Martin Luther was killed by the numbers as well. He died on February 18th, 2/18 in the Holy Roman Empire, when Holy Roman Empire equals 218 in the English language in reverse. Now, if you don't understand what you're looking at, this is the practice of Gematria, turning letters into their numerical value. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, so on and so forth. We have reverse right here. So that is simply putting the English language in reverse. Now A is 26, B is 25, C is 24, so on and so forth. And this is how these things are going on by the numbers. And he died in 1546, just to show you how far back this stuff goes. Moving along. Martin Luther was also the originator of the 95 Theses. Now, these 95 Theses, kind of what I just talked about previously, is a summary of the 95 Theses, but he went deeper on with all the issues that he had against the Catholic Church in these 95 Theses that he stated. He even defiantly, they put, nailed a copy of his 95 Theses to the door of the Wittenberg Castle Church. So he was standing on what he believed in. You heard me? Now, like I said, it was direct blasphemy with the original with this new Martin Luther King, right? With these 95 theses. And we know that it's a direct connection because the fake Martin Luther King ended up dying on the 95th day of the year on 95 date numerology. Now you see why they bring you these characters and they play the role that they play. Now you starting to understand. But let's go. Let's get it on. He also died on J. Edgar Hoover's 95th day of his age. Now, if you're not familiar with J. Edgar Hoover, he was the first director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Now, he wrote in an anonymous letter, which we know it came from him. He referred to Martin Luther King as evil, a fraud, a dissolute, abnormal, moral imbecile. The author threatens to expose King as an adulterer, and in the end, flat out suggests that the leader should self-delete himself. This is how strongly he felt, or as the story goes, right? This could all just be a perfect story formulated just to remove this character from the main stage. You always have to keep that in mind. Now, what's interesting about this is we just talked about him being the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Martin Luther King passed away 13 weeks and 3 days after J. Edgar Hoover's birthday, when Federal Bureau of Investigation equals 133 along with government. So now you see the words that we speak in this English language have already been coded hundreds and hundreds of years. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago. This Gematria is nothing new age. I just proved it to you. We're just now finding out due to the technology that we now have. But back then, this stuff was being done by hand. You see what I'm saying? Before English, they were using hieroglyphics. You understand? So let's keep on going. Now, in the year 64, the FBI tried to blackmail Martin Luther King Jr. into ending his civil rights campaign with that letter that told him to self-delete. Now, it's interesting that this happened in the year 64 when FBI equals 64, blackmail equals 64, and also Martin Luther King Jr., who is a black person, equals 64 as well. So it's some interesting synchronicities with this FBI and how they were set against Martin Luther King. It seems as if this was an elaborate story to remove him from the world stage, to make him seem like he was against the people at hand. Right? He also passed away 3 months and 3 days after the birthday of J. Edgar Hoover, when we know Masonry equals 33. Now, what's also interesting about that word Masonry, it also equals 39 in the reverse reduction, as Martin Luther King was, in fact, 39 years old at the time of his death. So we see how this stuff trickles down. And we see that Martin Luther King was, in fact, working in accordance. He was working right along with these people, because we have to understand the role that he was playing. He was playing a non-violent approach. Where did we get by doing that? Where did we get by quietly marching, getting gassed, getting tear gassed, bit by dogs, watered down with hoses, and then we go back home? What did we accomplish? See, Martin Luther King said himself, before he perished, or before he walked away from the world stage from playing his role, he finally admitted that he led his people down a burning building. He led them people down to destruction. He did not lead them to the promised land. That's why we have to understand why these leaders are put in front of us these control opposition. The best way to control the opposition is to become their leader, because you know you're not leading them anywhere promising. Now you understand why they use people like this. But come on. Right? Now, J. Edgar Hoover was also 73 years old at the time of Martin Luther King's death, right? Just like sacrifice and black history, right? Sacrifice doesn't always have to mean in blood. It could also mean just sacrificing that character to make black history. So it's interesting that sacrifice and black history both equal 73 in the context that we're talking about black history. See, it's always, the context is very important when you use Gematria. It's not all about just adding numbers together and whatever numbers match, that's what it is. It's also the context that's very important. See, the teacher used to always say, use context clues. You see what I'm saying? That type of thing. Now, if we break down the date numerology with J. Edgar Hoover, which was January 1st in the year 1895, we get 115 date numerology. Now, that's very interesting, that 115, because that happened to be Michael King Jr.'s birthday. 115, when we know killing equals 115, Masonic equals 115, and what's so crazy, civil rights leader equals 115 as well, right? Dropping that 0. We know in numerology rules, the 0 is null. So it's crazy that civil rights leader also has that 115, just like the day he was born. Remember, his father was already a high-ranking Omega Psi member. So, did they already know what his birthday needed to be for the numbers to align? So you have to understand, not only do these people naturally be born these days to play these roles, but sometimes their birthdays are also changed. Sometimes their biographies are being changed just for the numerology to line up. That's why his father knew what name to give him and himself. Martin Luther King also passed away 38 weeks. Well, he was murdered. We know for a fact, right? That's how the story went, right? He was murdered, right? 38 weeks before J. Edgar Hoover's upcoming birthday. Just like death, killing, murder, and in the city of Memphis, we get the number 38, right? Murder by numbers, 38. The number that we always see for that murder. The magic number 38. Now, the date, right, which was April 4th. This is interesting because this was the date that he was assassinated. When we take assassinated, we get 193 in reverse. We break 193 down, we get the 44th prime number, just like the date that he was assassinated, 4/4, as well as kill, shooting, execution, black person, and black people. We get the number 44. Now, this has an interesting parallel in black history as it revolves around black people and black person. Because if we look forward, if we look a couple years forward in our black history, we see that the 44th black president happened to be Barack Obama, right? When black people, once again, and black person both equal 44. And this happened to be the first black president, which was the 44th. When we already know, it's no need to, matter of fact, okay, Barack Obama added to the list. We're going to dismember him too in this Black History Month, right? Because we already know Barack Hussein Obama II isn't his real name either. These are all characters in front of us, Manchurian candidates. But come on. Right? Now, if we take the day that Barack Obama was elected as the president, November 4th, 2008, this was exactly 487 months after the death of Martin Luther King Jr. Now, 487 is the 93rd prime number. Just like Martin Luther King Jr. equals 93. So it's an exact correlation with these people that they put in front of you on a mainstream scale. What have these people really done for us if we look back? MLK. Now let's break down MLK now. Right, as we know that was his initials, as his giving initials. MLK. Now, MLK has an interesting connection to Moloch. Excuse me. The name Moloch has been understood as referring to a Canaanite god. However, since 1935, scholars have debated whether or not the term refers to a type of sacrifice on the basis of a similar term, also spelled MLK, which means sacrifice. Now, it's interesting that the initials MLK equal 216 in the English language, in the English Sumerian language, right? Simply the English language multiplied by 6, and it equals 216, which is 6 times 6 times 6. Now, those initials MLK, stuck with him, right? With him being born on 45 date numerology, January 15th in the year 29, just like MLK equals 45 in reverse. MLK gave his famous I Have a Dream speech on August 28th. If we break that down, 8 plus 28 equals 36, just like MLK equals 36. MLK was also killed on a balcony, which also equals 36. And what's so crazy, he was also in front of room 306 at the time that he was assassinated on that balcony, which equals 36. This fake fraudulent picture. Notice how the only people that are just paying attention and just all happen to point at the sniper all at once, but nobody else at the bottom seems to be bothered at all. Pay attention. There's blood on the ground. There's a paper towel already covering Martin Luther King's head. His legs are propped up, so he still has the muscle tension in his legs, right? That's what he's worried about the most. He just got shot, but let me worry about propping my legs up so I can be comfortable. Nobody else notices that he just got shot. Nobody else is bothered whatsoever. There's nobody moving frantically. Somebody just got shot. Nobody's worried about getting shot as well. Nobody's worried about maybe they might be the target instead. Maybe he's just going to shoot everybody. Let's all run to cover. Nobody's worried about any of these things. These are the questions we have to start asking. These are the things that we have to start analyzing. This person looked like they got their teeth out smiling. And the picture, who just knew when to take? Yeah, even the cameraman wasn't fearful at all. The cameraman, nobody was scared. The cameraman, it just happened to be somebody with a camera ready to take a picture at the time of this happening. It's just a picture perfect. These are the things you have to ask. Why are these moments so picture perfect? It's because they're framing them to you for your Black history to go off of. But these things are being fabricated. These things are lies. These are fabricated lies that's being spoon-fed to you. Now, continuing at 36 with MLK, right? With him passing away on this balcony, right? Which equals 36, right? With him being shot in front of room 306, right? He also died, quote unquote, 306 days before Rosa Parks' birthday, another fake figure in the civil rights movement. Right? Martin Luther King also got shot with a Remington 30-06 hunting rifle. This is the rifle that he, quote unquote, got killed with. Now, we can even fast forward into current day. Yes, they're going to continuously do this. They're going to continuously do this. Right? If we take Young Dolph, another character that was killed in Memphis, just like Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King passed away 306 days after Martin Luther King Day in the year of 2021. He also passed away at the age of 36. He also died on November 17th, which happened to be Lord Infamous's birthday, who was a member of 3-6 Mafia. Now you see how these things are connected all the way around. Right? Now, another synchronicity between Young Dolph and Martin Luther King. Young Dolph passed away 113 days after his birthday. Martin Luther King was assassinated 11 weeks and 3 days after his birthday, when we know that 113 is the number for dishonesty, green screen, dream world, fake reality, sinister, divorce, infidelity, perjury, disinfo, not factual, not true, broadcasting, mainstream, bullshit, election day, politics, puppets, illusions, fictions, not honest and dishonest, all equal 113 in the English language, forwards and backwards. And these are the days that these people so strategically happen to pass away on. It's something deeper to the surface. Now, let's throw Malcolm X into this hot water, right? Because Malcolm X was also synchronized with Martin Luther King Jr. as well, as both of their names happen to equal 93. Now, the reflection of 93 is 39, as Martin Luther King was 39 years old at the time of his death. Malcolm X was also 39 years and 39 weeks old at the time of his organized death. Even the name that he was born with, Malcolm Little, both equal 39 in the reverse reduction cipher as well. Every single one of these people have been packaged and given to you, all for their own enjoyment, all for their own entertainment. But on your end, you get the shit end of the stick, because you get the trauma. You get the negativity. You get all the negative aspects of these fake situations. You get the fake you get the fake trauma, because now when you hear about Black history, these are the things that you think about. People that have been beaten, whipped, treated inhumane, killed, assassinated. All of these things, all these negative things are associated with your Black history. This is why they don't teach you the real things. And we're going to shed the light on these things during this month. History and Masonry also equal 39, as these two figures in history passed away at the age of 39. Also with Masonry. Now, also with the word history is very interesting, because Martin Luther King passed away on the 11th week and the 4th day of his age. Just like history equals 114 and Martin Luther King Jr. equals 114. This event did indeed create history for years and years to come. This is exactly what it did. And he happened to pass away on that perfect day. Right? Also history. Fast forward, Barack Obama, the day that he was elected in, November 4th, 11/4, 114. History. This is history in the making, by the numbers. And we watched it. We lived through this moment. We lived it. We watched it. We seen it. We watched it on TV. We were happy. We celebrated. Not even knowing the backstory behind it. Not even knowing the machine that was running it all. It was all strategic from the get-go. From the day that this man was born. It was already figured out. It was already planned. Right? Also with history, right? Because we know that Martin Luther King Jr. was a Boule member, part of the Sigma Pi Phi fraternity. Now, if we take the fraternity's anniversary, Martin Luther King passed away 1 month, 1 week, and 4 days before the Sigma Pi Phi fraternity anniversary. Once again, history and Martin Luther King Jr. equal 114. Now, another interesting character that once again we're going to look back, and it's going to be history as well. LeBron James equals 114 as well, as we know that he has the Sigma Pi Phi Boule tattoo on his chest. These are history for us, people. Years later, we are going to speak about these individuals that have been handed to us. Since birth, these people have been here to play their role. Right? Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the Boule, happened to be founded on May 15th. In other words, the 15th of May, 155, when Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the Boule, equals 155 in the reverse reduction cipher. You're looking at the face of men that sold us out a long time ago, 100 years ago. 100 years ago, we were sold out. We were sold out before that anyway, because black people own slaves as well, right? But in the 1900s, in the 20th century, we were sold out again by the black Boule, all for their monetary gain. Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the Boule, also equals 151 in reduction as Martin Luther King's birthday, the 15th of January, 151. He also had his famous I Have a Dream speech, right? This I Have a Dream speech was 4 months, 2 weeks, and 5 days before Martin Luther King's upcoming birthday, right? It was on the 4th month, the 2nd week, and the 5th day of his I Have a Dream speech, when once again Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the Boule, equals 425. These things are happening by the numbers. This man was working alongside of the Boule. The Boule was working alongside of the government. It's all hand in hand. It's all hand in hand. What's so crazy, right? If we take the day that Sigma Pi Phi was founded, May 15th in the year 1904, Martin Luther King was killed 3,333 weeks after that. Those Masonry numbers. Yeah. He also passed away 9,000, Martin Luther King was born 9,011 days after Sigma Pi Phi, 9/11. Now we're seeing all these numbers that have created our history as we know it. Now you're starting to see 9/11. He also was killed 9 months and 11 days before his upcoming birthday in the year 69. Now you see these same numbers that's being utilized over and over and over again. Now, Martin Luther King also passed away 41 days before the Boule's birthday, when King equals 41. This is where it gets spicy, right? Martin Luther King's birthday was also on the 246th day of the Boule's anniversary as well. Just like King equals 246 in the English Sumerian cipher. Even if we take the span of Martin Luther King's life, which was 2,046 weeks, just like King equals 246 in the English Sumerian cipher. Right? National King Day happens to take place on the 23rd day of the year, just like king equals 23. So now we know for sure that this gematria is being understood and is being utilized. What's the odds of that? National King Day takes place on January 23rd. King equals 23. This circles right back to King James, who wore the number 23. This circles right back to the same people. All these things are being done by the numbers, right? So he's most known for wearing the number 23. He's also known for changing it also to the number 6, as king equals 66. Even LeBron James equals 66, as we know mark of beast equals 666. Now, here's LeBron James even understanding this numerology as well as he plays right in front of your face.
Number 6, it's for multiple reasons. One, because 23 is one of my favorite numbers as well. So, 2 times 3 is 6. Also, my first son, October 6th, the 6th day of October, and my youngest son is June 14th, the 6th month of the year. So, 6 has always been, with me. I mean, since I was like a kid for some odd reason, and then especially when I started with my family, and obviously I'm a big numbers guy too, so it made a lot of sense. But shout out crypto.com, man. 6 years
and 6 years. And that's how he ends it in crypto with 6 years. But the last thing that he forgot to mention was that even his name, LeBron James, equals 66 as well. These people are born to do the things that they're doing, right? This thing is all revolved around that king, right? King James. This goes directly to the King James Bible that has 66 books, just like king equals 66. This thing is universal. It's universal. This is why that King James, that same King James, revolves around that same King James in the Bible, with it being 66 books inside of that Bible, right? And we know that Bible was written by man. It is even said that the number of man is 666, right? So that Bible is even coded with gematria. Yes, believe it or not. Right? Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. Interesting enough, humanity equals 666 along with mark of beast equaling 666. Man understood this as they rewrote the Bible. These are the things that you have to understand. This numerology is already understood. That's why it's being told to you in a certain fashion. Now we can see this code also revealing with Martin Luther King, right? Going right back to him, because he was killed 1 month and 11 days before Sigma Pi Phi's birthday, just like humanity and mark of beast also equal 111. Now, also with humanity and mark of beast, it's also interesting that they both equal 39, as Martin Luther King James. Come on now, make the connections. 39. He died at the age of 39, just like humanity and mark of beast. So this code was utilized and shown to you and worked through the death of Martin Luther King Jr. Come on, man. Come on. Right? Same thing with the king. It's all revolved around king. It's all revolved around that word, right? Even his I have a dream speech, I have a dream, equals 66 as well, right? And he had this famous I have a dream speech on the 240th day of the year at the Lincoln Memorial, which equals 240 as well in the English language in reverse. Him being here alone should have already revealed to you, right, that he was in fact a puppet. As the Lincoln Memorial is in Washington, D.C., like the same place that Biden had his inauguration speech, the same place that Barack Obama had his inauguration ball when he got elected, this same place Martin Luther King had his famous speech as he was, fighting against the powers that be when he was at their establishments. But anyway, right? He also died 240 weeks after this speech. That was on the 240th day of the year at the Lincoln Memorial, which equals 240. He then proceeded to die 240 weeks later. Come on, man. Come on, man. Also, John Edgar Hoover also equals 240. This is how all these characters are connected, and you bring them right back around. This was the same man that wrote that letter right to him, telling him that he needs to self-delete. Right? Also with John Edgar Hoover, right? Because Martin Luther King passed away exactly 8 months and 4 weeks before his birthday, just like John Edgar Hoover equals 84. All of these characters are playing their role together to create the story. It's just a movie. It's a play. Just in real life. Just the director never says cut. It's just ongoing. They just keep feeding you characters and characters and characters. Now, let's talk about this I have a dream speech. Now, this I have a dream speech was 7 months and 13 days after Martin Luther King's birthday, which order of Illuminati equals 713. Interesting enough, order of Illuminati also synchronizes up with Martin Luther King Jr.'s name. Right? His birthday was also on the 20th week and the first day of his I Have a Dream speech. Just like order of Illuminati equals 201. This man was operating alongside the Boule and all the powers that be. Right? Now, after this I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King was killed 4 years and 7 months later. Also, his lifespan was a span of 470 months. Right? That number 47, when we know agent equals 47, we know government equals 47. He also died in the state of Tennessee, which also equals 47. He was also, quote unquote, killed by a name by James Earl Ray, which equals 47 as well. This was your hitman. This was your agent 47. This was your hitman, James Earl Ray. This is who they pin these things on. And they throw them away. Who knows if they actually do time. But here's your hitman, Agent 47. And even the game told you, the movie, the franchise told you that they understand this gematria as well with Agent 47. When the letters, adding the numbers up in their most simplistic way. A being the first letter, G being the 7th, E being the 5th, N being the 14th, T being the 20th. And you get the number 47 with the word agent. This was parallel to Rodney King as well, another person who played their role in causing the black trauma in the community. Right, with him being beat at the age of 25 and then him dying at the age of 47 when agent equals 25 and 47. Now we know there's 47 degrees in the Masonic compass. Osama bin Laden, White House, the cabal, two parties, Republican, Democrat, president, authority, framework, and government, all equal 47. Most importantly, the fact that Democrat and Republican both equal the same number, 47, telling you that they're two sides of the same coin, all playing to fool you. And last but not least, Martin Luther King passing away on the 81st day of his age, just like Ritual in the location, Memphis, Tennessee, both equal 81. Flawless victory. And with that being said, that's all we have for this Martin Luther King breakdown. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all share it, pass it along. And that's all we have for today. Appreciate all the love. Appreciate all the support. And I'm out.